A little bit.
No.
All right.
Yeah, your stories are good.
You're
So.
on. Okay. We're talking today with Marv Nagelkerke of Wyoming, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, Marv, let's begin at the beginning. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, February 17, 1928.
All right. And did you grow up in Grand Rapids?
I spent all my years in Grand Rapids, the Wyoming area.
Okay. And what was your family doing for a living when you were a kid?
My father had a shoe repair shop on Madison Square in Grand Rapids for 22 years, I think.
Okay. So he was able to keep that business through the Depression.
He started during the Depression. He
Okay.
was a truck driver for Berkey and Gay Furniture Company, and they went belly up, and then he started a shoe repair business and was very successful. He had himself and then two other people working for him, and very successful business. And then the war came and he could not get good materials to work with, and the ladies were very unhappy with their floors getting marked up from the rubber that they used at that time. So he says that's enough. He hung it up after 22 years of successful business.
Okay. And did he do some other kind of work after that?
He went, I think at that time, Bill Lear moved into Grand Rapids, electronics or something to that effect. And my dad had some experience at Berkey and Gay with shipping. So he went and applied over there, and he got the job of shipping manager. And he worked there for several years, and he was a hard worker, and he did not like standing around. And the union kind of got after him because he was helping the people where he should have been just lecturing to them or encouraging them to work. And he had enough. He quit.
Okay. All right. Now you're growing up then. As you become your teenager, World War II starts. Do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I'll tell you, that was very interesting. It was a Sunday afternoon. My folks had a beautiful big radio. It was big Zenith, had a big dial on it where you could get shortwave and different things. And I'd never played with the radio much, but that afternoon, I don't know, for some reason I turned that radio on, and all of a sudden it came in the news report that we are at war. And my dad stood up and he said, "Oh no," he says, "now I've been in the World War I, and now my boy's got to go and fight another war." He was very unhappy about that time, but yeah, it was quite a shock to get that on a Sunday afternoon. It just by accident that I turned the radio on,
Right.
I heard the whole story, you might say, just the starting of the war.
Okay. Now, did you already have relatives who were in the service at that time?
Not at that time, no. But my dad had been in World War I.
Okay. But you had a cousin, Pete Gilhood.
Two cousins that were in World War II.
Yeah, because
Peter, and then the other one was Ed. They both were in Ed was in the 126. He played the trumpet in the band, and then Peter, he was in the 127th, and he was, he grew up on the farm in Byron Center, a very healthy, strong family. They worked hard. They had their own acreage of celery and vegetables that they grew, and they had very good Christian people and worked hard all their life. Peter got called, of course, and he fought for months and a couple of years, probably.
Well, months. It would have been months if he's.
Well, he was there 5 days before the end of the conflict. He got killed.
Yeah,
Well, I guess your record here for Pete Gilhood, he's killed at Buna in New Guinea, and that's 1943. So the battle at Buna was going on for a couple of months at that time.
Right.
And if he's killed then there's still 2 years of the war left. but they're getting close to the time when the Japanese at Buna surrender. So the
Right.
battle is almost over.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. So now, did you have older brothers?
Yes, I had one older brother. Well, he had to be 6, 8 years older than I was, I guess. And he was also in the Army. He got drafted, and I think he was 20, probably almost 22 at that time. And then he went to Texas to Army camp and spent, several months there. And then at that time, my dad, of course, thought, they're going to go to overseas shortly. He said, maybe we ought to run down there to see them. So my uncle and aunt had a son in Louisiana. Well, the two cousins were in Louisiana. And my dad says to my Uncle John and Esther Gilhood, he says, you want to ride along with us? We'll drive down there. We'll leave tonight. We'll be there tomorrow night. And we'll leave you. They had a service home where the parents could stay. So we'll leave you there for a couple of days, and we'll go to Texas, see my brother, come back, pick you up, and we'll head home. We'll do, take a good week, but we said, we'll see our kids. So that's what we did. They drove all night. I can remember that. And got down to Louisiana, and my gosh, little narrow roads and waters looked like lakes on each side of the roads. Kind of scary at times, kind of narrow roads. And so we spent a nice weekend there with our cousins and my brother. And my mother, being an old cook, we had a cabin there in Texas. She had to make him a good home-cooked meal. That was part of the deal. She always wanted to make him a home-cooked meal, and of course the kids loved it after being in the service. So anyway, that worked out very well. We drove back to Louisiana and picked up my uncle and aunt and their son Earl. There was 6 of us in that car. Anyway, we headed back from Michigan. Of course, I think it was January or February or something in the spring. And of course, water on both sides of the road. When you got up into Illinois, you start running into snow and ice and bad roads, and we chucked all night. I can remember them 35, 40 miles an hour all night, and we got back home. We put the car in the garage, and I think that car didn't thaw out till several months later. We had so much ice under the front wheels they could hardly turn the steering wheel to put it in the garage. But we had a very good trip, no problems with travel, but it was very interesting. I was just 14 years old, and my dad says, I think I'm going to I could get a driver's license at 14 years old. So he took me to I don't know where we had to get the license, by Wyoming Township or downtown, the police station or what, but I got my license the day we left because he said, if I need a little help, maybe you can drive for me, But I was driving at 14, around the neighborhood. But
All right. So now you get back home again, the war has started, but you're too young to be in it.
Right.
So did you finish high school?
No, I went through about the 10th grade, and I was not high school material. And I was more interested in old cars and things like that. And I went to work for, I think, Auto Clinic at that time, delivering auto parts. Got my feet wet over there. And I was always into cars. I drove a truck for 28 years for American Seating, and then several other years yet besides that for individuals. But then I went to work for Kennewa Auto, good friends of mine. He's from Byron Center. He had 5 stores in the area, and I seen him one day. He said, why don't you come to work for me? Oh man, I don't know. At that time I had delivered auto parts for for this company, and he says, well, come to work for me. So I went to work for him. I worked for him for 20 years.
He's dropped a bunch of stuff you forgot to talk about. Like, Daddy forgot to talk about when you were a young boy driving, delivering milk or powdered milk, and then you forgot, you skipped a bunch of time. You forgot your truck driving years. But then,
at this point, we're kind of going over the basics of the story to get him into
but he
this.
skipped like 50 years.
Well,
Well, yeah. I mean, I realized that he jumped ahead to talk about that.
Okay,
but,
all right.
but anyway, but you were so basically you leave school, and so you're actually working. Now, were you following the news from the war?
oh yeah, every day. I mean, we had the radio on whenever we could get any kind of news, and then my folks found a couple in Jackson, who my brother was. That was his officer. Was a lieutenant, and they start course. We hardly. I don't think we had a phone till then, and then we got a phone, and then they were connecting with the people in Jackson a little bit, and we got more information from them than we would from my brother. And somehow or other, I don't know, they said that evidently my brother must have helped that lieutenant out of a jam somehow, because they praised my folks about what my brother did for him, but we never heard nothing about him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, and then how old were you when the war ended?
When the war ended, well, I would have been probably, just
17?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when the war ended, I went in before the war was ended, I think, because I was 17 when I enlisted. I was 18, and I went in. Well, that was just, I guess, 42 to 46.
Well, you go in 46.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
But you were already. But did you get a draft notice before you turned 18?
Well, yeah, I
It
was
was
going to be, yeah. So I enlisted just prior to that, so I could get under for 2 years.
Okay. Now talk about that. So you get a draft notice, and then once you got that notice,
You got to apply.
how did you respond to that? Or
Well, hey, I got to go. I mean, I was looking forward to it because, I mean, you signed up for it.
okay. But which branch of the service did you go in?
Well, I was kind of debating, but my brother had just got home. He was just discharged. I said, what do I do? He said, go in the Navy. At least you got a place to sleep. Of course, he went all across Africa, Sicily, and Italy, sleeping wherever they could. So he said, you're aboard ship, you'll have some kind of well, we called them racks. You'll have a place to sleep anyway. So, which I was an aircraft carrier there, and we were stacked 3-4 high maybe, but you had a bunk.
Okay. All right. So basically, so your brother recommends that you go and just enlist in the Navy.
Yes.
All right. And then when you enlisted in the Navy, did you have options for?
Not a whole lot. You could write down what you'd like, but
But could you choose between going into the Naval Reserve or the regular Navy?
I think I did because I chose the regular Navy.
And why did you choose the regular Navy?
Oh, my brother said after your 2 years are up, you'll get out of the service. Because I had friends that went the other. They got called up for the reserves, and they had to go back to Vietnam, I think.
Korea.
Korea, yeah.
That would have been Korea, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you sign up for 2 years. All right. And so where do you report for duty? Where do you do your training?
Well, I went to Detroit for physical. And I think that same afternoon I went from physical to the railroad station and went to Camp Perry, Virginia, which was an old CB base, which they had shut down. An old wooden barracks and so on. And here comes all these Navy kids swarming in there. And old pot-belly stoves in the middle of the barracks. 2 pot-belly stoves in each barracks, long barracks. Kids in there, you know, sleeping, and you get the fire would go down, you stick another log on it, you know, and it was hotter than a pistol, and you throw your blankets back, and pretty soon it's cold, you're freezing. Guy checking the fire went to sleep. Yeah, so it was quite an experience, but I never regret it. I mean, I think today, I think everybody ought to have a little taste of service.
Okay. Now, what did you actually do in training?
Little marching, handled a gun and whatever. Well, never shot the gun, but we had an old, well, I guess it wasn't an old service rifle. You did exercise and marching and things like that. But.
Okay. And then did you get training that's specifically for the Navy?
Yes.
What kind of things were they teaching you?
Oh gosh, that's so long ago.
Oh, so things like all the words for different things, so you learn that a bunk is a rack, or...
Oh yeah, well you got that right away when you got in. You're going to go in the bunk, not, you know, or rack aboard ship, and sometimes you're stacked 3-4 high. Yeah.
Okay. And was there a lot of emphasis on discipline?
Oh yeah, I think it was a good learning experience, and they're pretty strict on what you did and what you should have done.
Okay. And how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to being in the military?
Oh, I don't think it was too hard because, you know, I was always taught at home to do what's right, and you had the learning. Maybe you didn't always quite follow what Mama said or Daddy, but they did a good job, I think, and I never regret it. And I think I left a little bit on my family, and I think, and I'm proud of every one of them. They've done a good job raising good family kids and no problems, and you know, it's so blessed that they all have good jobs, no sickness, and good health, and I'll tell you, it's...
All right. Okay. And so about how long did the training last?
Oh, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks or so,
Okay.
and then we got on a troop train and went from Virginia to California, and no air conditioning. And I can remember going through tunnels in West Virginia and Ohio, and the windows were open on the old cars because we didn't have no air conditioning, and the dust and the dirt, and I think we had 4 or 5 days with no showers, no bathing, and we were pretty stout. And
Okay. So where did you go to in California?
Camp. It was Bakersfield, I think.
Okay.
What was it, Steve?
You got it written down, yeah.
All right. Was it, did you sail out of San Francisco?
It was 50 miles or so from inland.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then we went from, when we were there maybe 14 days or so, then we went to the bridge, you know, where the Treasure Island.
Okay, yeah. So you go to San Francisco Bay.
Went to Shoemaker, California.
Okay. So it's Camp Shoemaker.
Shoemaker, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the Treasure Island.
Yeah. And so then you will sail out of San Francisco.
Right.
You leave in May. So what kind of ship were you on when you
We
sail
were
out?
on a freighter, and I think he's got that down 14 days, wasn't it? About 14 days on this troop ship full of sailors
All right.
going to Guam.
Okay. Now, was this your first time at sea?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you get seasick?
Oh yeah, I think about everybody got sick, you know, you're just not used to it, and it's a new experience. A lot of them were hanging over the sides. Yeah.
All right. Now, did you get used to it over the course of 2 weeks?
Well, I think about the time you get there, you're starting to, but then you get on this huge ship, and it's like an island, and it's altogether different, you know.
Okay. All right. Now, when you were crossing the ocean, sometimes when people do that, if they cross the equator or the date line, they have ceremonies.
Yeah, that was later
Okay.
aboard the aircraft here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were on this ship, and you spent about 2 weeks on that, on the freighter.
No duties, no nothing, just passengers.
Okay. And then could you get time up on deck?
Oh yeah, I think we all could get up on deck and try to get some sun or watch the whales or watch different things, you know. I see a few things out there, not much, but once in a while you see a different ship.
Okay. And then where did you sail to?
Guam.
Okay. And what happens when you get there?
Well, at Guam we went ashore, of course, and transferred to the Antietam.
Okay. And what was the Antietam?
CV-36. It was an aircraft carrier. It was the Essex class. It was made in Washington, Bremerton, I think. It was on its way to Japan when the war was over, when they signed it. So it was never in action, and then we got aboard it, and I think after a couple of years, whenever got off the ship, I think it went back to Bremerton, and they decommissioned it. But then a few years later, they brought it back out for
Korea, probably.
Korea.
Yeah.
But then after Korea, it went to Florida, and they put the angular deck on it. That was the first ship with the angular deck. So that's. But then after that, I heard it went to the junkyard up in New York again. So.
Okay. All right. So you get on the Antietam. Now you're on an aircraft carrier. What were your duties on the ship?
Well, they have aircraft like that could have 70 planes aboard, maybe a few more or less. And then they have 3 elevators. Yeah. The plane lands, of course, on the rear of the ship and taxis forward, gets on and folds its wings all up, and it gets on the elevator and they put them down on the hangar deck. And we can stand 20, 30 planes on the hangar deck with their wings all folded up. So that was our duty, to spot the planes on the hangar deck as we had flight operations.
Okay.
So, and then in real rough weather, then we had to tie them down with cables, because that even a ship that size will take quite a beating in a storm, up and down, and yeah, you get a little antsy. You're laying in that bunk at night, creak, crack, creak, crack. That sucker is creaking. You wonder, dear God, am I going to be here in the morning? But they never had no problems. They were made to pull apart a little or work a little bit. But
Right. Okay.
that was like almost 900 foot long. It's like 3 football fields. I mean, now today the new ones are like 1,200 feet long. They're just unreal, the size of the new ones today.
Okay. So it was still good to be on a bigger ship.
Oh yeah, I was glad I was on a big ship, yeah.
Okay.
But what we used to kid once in a while, we would refuel destroyers as we're traveling, we're underway, and a destroyer pull alongside of us, and then we would put a line between them and refuel the destroyer at sea, while we were getting fuel on the other side from a transport
A tanker. Yeah.
tanker, and that was quite an experience. And we'd kind of tease them kids aboard the destroyer down there getting fuel. We'd be licking on an ice cream cone, and how's that dry land duty up there? You know, they had to rub it in a little bit, but yeah, it was quite an experience, quite a learning. We'd transfer, you know, maybe we had somebody aboard the destroyer needs surgery or something, they would run them across on a line to our ship, and we would, you know, probably do surgery or whatever they needed, and yeah, transported different things across with a rope. You know, it's just unreal what they do, you know, but that's the way it is.
Okay. Now, when you left Guam, where did you go next?
Oh, we went Saipan, Tinian, several of the islands, and then I think on the first the July 4th, we were in Philippines, and that was they got their independence from the United States. But that was a mess. I don't think if we did get ashore, it was like 4 or 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You could go downtown and see the mess, what was left of the city.
Okay, so you could still see the damage left over from the war.
Oh yeah, even 47, we went back again. 2 years in a row we were there. And, you couldn't hardly see any change in a couple of years, just so far gone. It was amazing, how people lived through it at all. Yeah.
Okay. And then from Manila, where do you go?
I think we came back, and we went back to the United States. We went in dry dock for 2-3 months in the wintertime. Just Hunter's Point, which is just out of San Francisco.
Okay. And what would you do while the ship is in dry dock?
Well, maybe stand by a yard worker with a CO2 bottle just to protect it, so you don't have a fire or so. Certain amount of the crew stayed aboard ship, but that was an experience just by itself. See that big sucker go there, and they drain the water out, and they set you on some great big cement blocks. It's just amazing, that ship out of the water, how big it is, because you probably got 30 feet below the water line that you don't even see, So it's a humongous ship when they're out of the water. But
Okay. So did you actually live on the ship at that time, or did they put you ashore?
No, we lived aboard. A certain amount of us stayed aboard, but we did. Got awful sick one day. We used to get ham, I think on Saturday night. Always got ham with your meal. And I think the cooks kind of screwed it up. They didn't put it away. It was on aluminum pans, or I don't know. I heard different reports. But the next morning, Sunday morning, we're going to put our ship in dry dock. We got to float it in. We got to hold on the line. A bunch of us are line handlers. So how are you going to hold a ship that big with a rope, But anyway, they steered it in there, and they line it up. It's got to land right on these cement blocks so they can work around it. And I'm on a line handling operation on the shore, and I started getting sick. Oh man, several of us, there was 20 or so, got sick. The first guys in the line got sick. And there was of course we called it latrine or whatever, the head, we call it the head on the shore. I went in there, and I'm sitting in there, and somebody from some other ship came in there or something. I said, you better go get somebody off that ship. I said, I'll never make it back. Oh, I was so sick. Well, anyway, they got me back aboard ship. I think I was in sick bay for about a week, and come to find out there was about 20 of us in there. We got ptomaine poisoning, I think. And that was quite an experience, I'll tell you. What, you didn't give a rip what next morning came or not. Oh man. But for years I wouldn't touch ham. And yet now today I still love it. I love ham.
All right. Now, while you were in dry dock, did they give you any kind of leave? Could you go home?
I think you could if you had leave coming, if you were up to it.
Okay.
I don't recall when I went home. I did go home on the train, but that's 48 hours from Frisco to Chicago. Oh, it's a couple of days there, a couple of days back. You soon blow 14-day leave, but I did go home once, I think. And
well, during the later state, did you come back to the States later on in your tour and go home, or?
Yeah, well, when the ship came back in every time, and then I think I got, I was discharged.
Yeah. All right. So you go back. You're in dry dock for a while. You get out of dry dock.
Back to the Guam again.
Okay.
That was our base of operation.
Mhm.
But from then that year, we went to Australia. We were on Task Force 38, I think. There was about 14 ships, a couple cruisers, 8 destroyers, I think, 2 aircraft carriers. We operated with the Boxer, and that was another carrier. Well, we had 2 carriers and 8 destroyers and 2 cruisers, I think. We had quite a crew there, you know. But when the weather got bad, the destroyers were gone. We stuck it out. The big ships had to kind of ride the waves. That was an experience. Hear them old ships crack and creak.
Right. Okay. Now, do you remember where you went in Australia?
Sydney.
Okay.
We spent 14 days there and tied up right downtown. You know, you could come and go pretty much. It was, I enjoyed Australia. It was nice and clean and nice green grass, and I remember they served a lot of salads. If I don't chop, you don't eat your grass. I think they call it lettuce grass, if I remember right. You're not going to eat your grass, old boy? But yeah, they were good people. Nice to, the war was over, and they were happy to see us because the Americans did a lot for Japan.
Or for Australia?
Yeah, Japan, yeah, Australia. Excuse me. But no, they were good people. Yeah, it's. Then we came back and edged back toward the strait or to Washington, California again, and that was pretty much the end of my career there.
Okay. Now, I believe you also, though, got to Japan and China.
Yeah, in between there, I think we did get up there, but we didn't spend a lot of time there, We could go ashore, I think, at China, but we just could go to the city limits. We couldn't go out of the city. You could still hear gunshots out there, somewhat.
Okay. Well, by 46 and 47, there was a civil war going on.
Yeah.
So the communists were trying to
Right.
take over. Do you remember what port you went to in China?
Tsingtao,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, well, that would have been a likely
Yeah.
place to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a couple. We had like 14 ships, so I mean, some went here, some same way in Australia. We went to downtown Sydney, where some went to Brisbane, some went to, 3 different places. But they were so friendly down there. When we went to leave, a couple of the ships ran out of there without a couple of their crew members. They stayed AWOL over in Australia. They kind of liked it. But I think they probably got a little trouble for that. But
Okay. Now, did you go ashore in China?
I don't think so.
Okay. And did you go ashore in Japan?
I don't think I went either place. It didn't interest me.
Okay. All right. So you really didn't see anything of the local people or what the
No,
places
I
looked
don't
like?
think I did. That's so long ago.
Okay. Now, when you get back to the States after that tour, was your enlistment up, or did you stay with the ship for a while?
I think we probably stayed aboard ship a little bit,
Mhm.
I know when we were, the first year, I think we came back and we unloaded ammunition and everything out in the bay. And then we, had everything off the ship when we went in dry dock so that, there were no explosives aboard. But yeah, it was quite a deal there, unloading all that ammunition and things. And yeah, it's yeah. We had a couple clowns aboard ship, and they had to carry them bombs from down the far in the hold as you can go, and then bring them up, probably like 100 feet, 30 feet, probably 75, 80 feet. That bomb come from the bottom on a little old cart. And the elevator wasn't much bigger than, I think it was a little narrower than this table, maybe about that, just made for these little bomb carts. We had a couple clowns. They're always screwing around. You never knew what was going to happen. And that bomb cart with a bomb on it, somehow or other, they weren't designed too well. You had to tip them a little bit to roll them, but the thing took a flip and down it went all the way down to the bottom. And I mean, we were pooping our pants. Wonder what was going to happen, you know. Fortunately, there's no fuse in them or nothing, but oh, that thing! I don't recall looking at the bottom of that bomb elevator, but I'm sure it had a big dent in it. Oh, that was scary. But that kid, he was just always in trouble. He was a troublemaker, you know, and just crazy. He was from Philadelphia or somewhere on the East Coast up there, and he didn't like washing his clothes. We washed our clothes a lot by hand, you know, and then he had about 100-foot rope. We were up in the island up there a ways where our compartment was. We weren't in the bottom. We were up higher, and he had the porthole was open, and he threw his line out there with his clothes hung on to it. He figured the water would wash his clothes.
So he was going to let the ocean wash his clothes?
Oh yeah, he threw it out there, and you could see that thing plop, plop, plop over the waves, you know. Half hour later, you know, I better go look at my clothes. They're gone. But, oh, he dropped the bomb over the side, he loses his clothes, and then one other time, he's looking out there, and the yard workers were an inch to yard, and we're probably 30 feet. That ship is down below, you know, the water line. These yard workers are working down there painting and whatnot on the sides of the ship. And we're chipping paint up on, you know, they have a little metal thing to chip paint and scrape paint. He said, I wonder if I can hit that 5-gallon bucket of paint down there. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Well, these yard guys got metal hats on, but if he would have hit one, I'm sure it would have split it wide open. That idiot threw it out there, and bang, right in a bucket of paint. And it splattered all over. And them yard workers were beside themselves. And I would too. Getting a hunk of metal dropped down there. Of course, they didn't know what went in the bucket, but oh, I'll tell you, we were so scared that we were going to get in a lot of trouble, you know. I don't recall the outcome of it, but he couldn't do anything right. He just screwing up all the time.
Right.
But that kind of made your week go faster, I guess.
Okay. So when you're on the ship and so forth and on duty, who was in charge? Was there a petty officer or somebody who was? Yeah,
we had a lieutenant, I think. He was on the hangar deck crew. Mm-hmm. And then he was in charge of our department, you might say. So, yeah, they were on top of us all the time, you know. But we used to have to, the decks had to be shined, you know. We had little John Deere tractors. I don't know what they were. Little gray tractors. And that's what we moved airplanes with. Well, we had a great big old metal rack on there, and it seemed like it had a lot of brushes put together. And we had to drag that on our deck to keep it shiny and cleaned up, you know. So it was always something work to do, painting and doing, cleaning up.
Okay. Was the deck a wooden deck?
Oh, no.
Oh, it was metal now?
All metal, but
okay.
Yeah. And then every once in a while they'd let us have movies that night, you know, at the deck, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad experience, just what you made of it. You know, you go with a good idea, hey, I gotta make, my dad always told me, he said, you do the best you can and go with a good idea, so that's what you leave with, you know, I'm gonna make the best of it, and which I did, and, you know, it worked out good.
Okay. All right. Now, aside from the poisoned ham, what was the food like on the ship?
Well, it wasn't mother's cooking, you know, but hey, there again, you make the best of it. Suck it up, my buttercup. That's what my son always, suck it up, buttercup. And that's what of course, I didn't know that back then yet, but anyway, you do what you can, and you take and eat what you want, and yeah, make the best of it.
Okay. And so when you get back from your last overseas tour and so forth, you get back to San Francisco, what happens at that point?
Well, I think I went back to Hunters Point, or I don't know, I think I got a discharge right
Okay.
there in San Francisco, I think.
All right.
When we got off the ship, I think it was in late December. And I think I made it home for Christmas, I think, but I should have went to February. But they were getting rid of a lot of two-year men in the Navy. They were downsizing, you know, and so they let us go early just to get the heck out of there. And of course, we didn't mind, you know, hey, we're going home.
Okay. Now, and then when you got back home, did you pick up with your old job or start a new one?
No, my dad, well, I had a cousin, worked for Westinghouse Electric, and he repaired appliances over on Monroe Avenue. And my dad said, why don't you work with him a little while? Evidently he had an opening my dad knew about. So I did work over there for a couple months. So in the winter it was till maybe March, April. And I had another friend went to our church. He said, why don't you come to work for my dad? He had a gravel company. And he says, you know, you drive truck, learn the operation, and learn how to do this and that. So I went to work for them, and yeah, I learned how to drive truck there, and I spent several years with them, and yeah, I was all in the main man. He kind of took a little liking to me, I guess. I did good things, and he would go to Ohio and go to auction sale down the Army auctions once in a while and buy a piece of equipment. And I would take a lowboy in a truck and pick up a big load and haul it home. And he would be, of course, a lot of times he had to have an escort, you know, or flagman or so. Maybe I'd take somebody with me to flag or so when they go around a corner, but it was too wide a load. But so I did that for a while, and yeah, they were good to work for. And winters were a little slower, but he kept me on. And we were raising a family, but just bought a home and had Rastus over there, and yeah, so we were getting our feet wet, you might say. So I needed a job. So.
Okay. So when did you get married?
Well,
1955.
he knows better than I do.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you were a bachelor there for a while after
Yeah,
you
a couple
got
years,
back.
not too long, but yeah, we bought a nice little house. My dad was always looked pretty. He was a pretty sharp guy. He had that, like I say, that shoe repair business for years, but he could do anything. I mean, he didn't hire somebody right away, and we're the same way. We learned to do things the hard way, and I never regret it. I mean, you know, I can count the times I had a service call. I've been here. It was going to be just temporary. We sold our house in Granville in two days, and wow, so what do we do now? Well, my wife knew the gal that worked in the office, and she said, there's nothing for sale in here. She said, we don't have an empty lot. Oh, she said, these people up in the corner, they want to go to Florida. And this area was 5 years old, and this unit was 5 years old. So we took one look at this, and man, we grabbed it right away because I liked the shed, I liked the yard.
Mm-hmm.
I like the yard work. It's 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's just what we wanted. You know, we grabbed it. It was going to be temporary. Here it's 30 years later.
You're
and I'm
still here.
Still here, of course.
Okay. Now, when you look back at the time you spent in the Navy, what do you think you learned from that, or what did you take from that?
Well, you know, just do what's right, and yeah, don't be afraid of work. You know, you do your best. Yeah, I told my kids I got 5 children, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, and I always told them too. I said, you do a job that you cut grass. Hey, take the clipper, trim around the edges. Just give them a little extra, you know. Always give them a little extra. Don't cut it off short. Give them a little extra. And I always instilled that into them. And to this day, their kids are doing the same thing now.
All right. Now, we've got one of your kids here, your son Steve,
Yeah.
and we're going to have him give us a little extra. Steve, you want to kind of come over here and remind him about stories he should add?
You want him to sit
No,
here?
no, no. You sit there. He'll talk.
Do you want a glass of water, Dad?
No,
We'll be able to hear him just fine. So, okay. So from the early years, are there other particular stories that?
Well, you know, he covered a bunch of the funny stories. He talked about, you know, dropping the bomb on the bottom of the ship,
Right.
and his buddy, the screw up guy. But I'm pretty sure he did go to China and Japan. And the reason why I say that is because he bought some gifts for his mom. He bought,
oh yeah, I did. Yeah,
So-
a tablecloth, big tablecloth.
and then some really super lightweight vases that somehow
that's
made
right.
it all the way back without
Who's
being
got them now?
broken.
You have
I got
them?
them, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then you had, I remember having a bunch of Chinese money, which
Yeah.
I still have, which,
I forgot all
Okay.
about it.
so
at
I
the
mean,
time.
I remember him
Oh, I remember them vases. They were paper thin,
paper thin vases.
and I really had them stacked, good, packed, good. But one of them got broken. I think my dad glued it back
Yeah,
together,
it's still
piece
together.
by piece.
But
And-
he sent them by the mail.
Mm-hmm.
These things were like paper thin, super fragile, and one of them made it.
Okay. And then what about the milk delivery?
Well,
Wait a
you
minute.
used to deliver milk, but you worked for a milk company. But then you drove a truck with no brakes
Oh,
because
that
they
one-
loaded from the gypsum mine.
when I was like 15 years old, I think I was still in school, but it was summer vacation. We was working for this company down there by the downtown by the railroad tracks. A big freight company and sugar and salt, and they sell it all over there. But we would get carloads of carnation milk, and the old depot was still there, and it was on the other side. I think they had a siding where they'd put cars in there, full of railroad cars, full of milk, and we had to take that off and put it in storage, and then we'd put it on the back of a pickup or a stake truck and put it up 4 or 5 high or so, and 3, 4, or 5 kids, a couple on the back and 3 in the front seat with me. They said, "Who can drive a truck?" "Oh, I drive a car. I can drive that truck." So that's back in the 40s, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was during the war.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going down Ionia. I think it's Ionia, coming up to Wealthy Street. And on the other corner was a garden supply at one time. It's long gone. But come up that corner, and I got a load of milk on, and the kid's sitting on top of the load, which was a no-no. Anyway, I come up to the light, and there's no brakes. Oh, Lord, what do I do now? Oh, thank you. There wasn't a car coming. And we coasted through there, and I got the other side. I shut it down. I said, "That's it." I went half a block to the office. I said, "You go get your truck. I'm not driving it no more." Oh, thank the good Lord. I'll tell you, we could have had kids splattered all over the road with milk all over the road, but we would put it in a warehouse, and then a couple months later you had to go just move them over a few feet and tip it over to keep that milk from settling.
Yeah, because this is all powdered milk, right?
Well, I don't know if it's powdered or condensed
Well,
milk. Yeah, it was condensed milk
so it's in
because they
can,
went
yeah.
overseas and they used it in your coffee and so
Okay.
on. It was out of a can.
Okay. Yeah, so
But,
that could be condensed milk.
Yeah, we did a lot of that stuff. And I think we were getting about 50-some cents an hour at that time.
Which I think there in the 1940s wasn't bad.
Yeah, I don't recall at that time. I don't think we thought it was enough because, it was so hot in them old warehouses, and them railroad cars were just wooden cars full of, they were hot. But yeah, it was a job for us kids, school kids.
Sure.
Well, a lot of the guys were gone.
Oh, yeah.
So they
couldn't
needed
get no help.
younger guys to do the work that,
Yeah. But, learning experience.
Wow.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
I mean, he's got some great stories about his first cars and back in the day, drag racing, with ration gas, that type of thing.
All right. So you were drag racing before you went in the service?
Oh, maybe a little bit. I had my first car when I was 15. Where is that picture?
I was looking for it.
15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of ours, he was a preacher at Lee Street Christian Reformed Church. His name was Decker. And he had this 29 Chevy. I had a buddy live next door to him. And he said, that car's for sale. Dad, can I buy a car? Well, he knew I could drive pretty good because he rode with me. I was 14 years old. So he let me buy it. I think it was around $50, $55, $45, $65. I don't know. But it was 29 Chevy. It was a beauty. It was a nice shape. So I bought that thing, and
Tell them what you did when you got it home.
well, that was 6 months later.
Oh, okay.
Started having a little rod knockers, we've got a big tree in the front yard. A buddy of mine, we got a chain fall. We picked the front end up and we pulled the motor out, fixed the rods and put it back together. Learning,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his dad came home with a motor hanging in the front yard from a tree.
That went over like a fart in church. Yeah, anyway, we had, then one other time was,
Oh, your brother's car when he was over in Africa.
It was so Chevy.
Oh, okay.
You
all right,
forgot
all right.
the highest spot.
Oh, with the Wyoming.
Buddy had a 29 Chevy. He was about my same age. We could get our license at 14 then, and we're on Chicago Drive by Godfrey, and of course he's sitting next to me and racing his motor a little bit. And what's that mean? The light changed. We both took off like a dirty shirt down Chicago Drive. Got to Burlingame, and just past Burlingame was the hardware store, Kent Block Hardware, and all of a sudden there's a wee, Hudson car coming with a little red light on top. We both pulled it. You boys having fun? Not no more. And Jerry Lanica, he was a big, tall cop, and John, whatever, I can't think of it. John was shorter, and they looked like Mutt and Jeff, And the boy, my friend went to the same church that they did. He didn't give us no breaks. He wrote us up. I think we had to go to the Justice of the Peace. I think it was $35 at that time. Come out of our kid, 15, 16 years old, that would kind of hurt, So you kind of listened a little bit after that.
Well, how about the one with your brother's car?
Yeah, but it was dark. There was nobody around.
No, your brother's car. Who's in Africa at the time.
Well, I had to take care of that car and tune it up and keep it running good. And it's a 41 Pontiac.
I got a picture of that somewhere too. So.
Yeah, it's a beauty. And he got that just before he went to service, and he had it 4 months, I think, and he had to go to service, and we put it on blocks, and kept it on blocks for years, and then he came home on leave, and of course he drove it some, and we put it back in the garage, but I had to take it out and dust the motor out a little bit. Well, I had a few friends that had old Fords and Chevys, and I don't know why we ended up in Standale, or out there by Standale and going west at the big 4-lane highway. There was no traffic years ago, and the boys are all they're going to drag race. I stayed way on the back end. I can't be smashing this car up, man. I might as well shoot myself if I do. But then boys got going, and they got up to 70, 80, missing and the spitting and the sputting, and I couldn't take it no more. And I blew them all off the road with that Pontiac. That was a beautiful car. That was Sam Linger's car that he went to Florida with, and then my brother bought it and had it all during the war. Of course, it was in a barn for years, but he came out. He had several times he could have sold it $3,000. It was brand new. There were no cars in 45, 46. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that enough, sir?
Well, it amazes me. Like last year, when I came home last year, we drove around the old neighborhoods, and he was taking me around, and we're going down Chicago Drive, and he points out to this building. It's kind of dilapidated now. It's not abandoned, but it's in bad shape. And there used to be a bar downstairs, and upstairs there was a bowling alley.
It's Walker's grocery, or by Nagel, across from the drugstore there years ago. They had a bowling alley upstairs there. I think there's five tracks, you know. I used to go up there and set pins once in a while, you know. And that was.
Well, it just amazes me when I drive down there with him what he remembers. You know, we went to his old house that he kind of grew up in, and there was like
grew up. I was born there.
Yeah, this Hispanic lady, and we're outside like looking at the house, and she's looking at us, and then
I jumped out of the car.
I said to her, "Sorry to bother you, ma'am, but my dad was born in this house," and she goes, "Do you want to come in?" You know, and like it's super.
Oh, they were just the sweetest lady. I couldn't believe it, you know.
The yard was like, my dad just loved the yard and like how they kept up at it.
They really kept the house up nice. Yeah, that house, my dad had it built. About $2,300 back in them days, you know. Yeah, he had 3 lots there on the corner, and he put the house on all 3 of them eventually, but the one I was born in, that's the one that I think $2,some $100 when they put that up. Yeah, but that lady was so neat. I couldn't believe that she wanted us to look at the inside, how nice she kept it.
A couple people she didn't know from Adam. And
well, then to top it off, we went to Wyoming Park where he lived.
Our first house.
His first house.
And we're looking at the house, and this lady says, looking at us, like, goes, "Yeah, I bought the house in 1976. Do you want to come inside?" It's like, so we got a tour of that house too.
Couldn't believe people were just so nice to us. You know, that don't happen very often.
Well, I was with an old guy. They felt sorry for him.
Oh, that good-looking old fart.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, I think that probably about wraps up. Okay. I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today.
We enjoyed talking to you, you know.
All right. Very good.
I hope you get some good results.
Sure we will.